Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tramore.
Isn't that very sad news coming from Malaysia this morning that you just heard on our news bulletin there? And I think anybody who's been following this story about Nora Karan, even though it hasn't been officially announced that it's her, but I think anyone who's been following the story, kind of the longer it went on, the less hopeful. I think most people thought there wouldn't be such a good outcome for her. But I think you'd have to feel so very, very sorry for her family, gone on their holidays and then having to come home without her. Very, very sad. Just something else coming up on the programme this morning. It's the time of year when school bus problems make their presence felt. So we're going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking to the Mayor of the City and County, Councillor John Pratt, about some issues in West Waterford, and talking to a parent that's affected as well. And we were talking yesterday in the programme about Waterford walls. And we had a bit of reaction into that. And one person called Anne texted in to say that she'd love to see some Waterford landmarks on the city walls, that she saw this abroad and she thought it was very effective. On the other hand, though, this text says, "Hi Maria, I'll probably be blasted for this, but can I just get something off my chest? I do not like Waterford walls. I appreciate these young and not so young people are talented, and I'm recognising this, but please, not on our walls. It looks cheap and ghettoised." She knows that the programme is, because it came in quite late in the programme and didn't get a chance to read it yesterday, which is why I'm reading it now. And it's from somebody called Steph, who says thank you. At least you put your name to it, Steph. But does anyone agree with Steph? Do you not like Waterford walls? Because I thought it looked beautiful and I think it looks very nice, but maybe it's not to everybody's taste. Let's have your thoughts on that on 083 3333 975. You can use WhatsApp if you want, or you can call 051 846 123. Now, I have a guest waiting very patiently in studio with me, and he is Norman Graham. Now, Norman, you're very welcome to the programme. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much, Mary. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're a resident of Riverstown in Tramore.
Indeed, long time.
Talk to us about some trees.
Yeah, I'm a long-time resident in Tramore, and I'm not really a member of any party, Green or otherwise. I would be as concerned as any other citizen about environmental matters, living by the sea as I do, and I see the bad and I see the good. And Sunday, we're moving quite quickly now, so only on Sunday I was contacted by a lady who is far more concerned with the environment than I would be, and far more active than I would be, and is a person who reads planning notices regularly and wants to know what's going on in that. And she has been involved in many matters of concern about building and construction and various things like that. So she made me aware, which I wasn't, and I'm sure most people listening to this morning weren't aware, the original site that was there for Aldi in Tramore. Aldi is now being built, as people might have seen the construction there opposite the Sands Hotel down by where the amusements are. But the original site would have been by the GA park as you come in. I hate to be regional, but I know most people in Waterford have a good idea of the locations in Tramore. So as you come into the town, you meet the red brick roundabout, and after that there is the large roundabout. The GA is on the left of that large roundabout. Between the GA and the large roundabout is a narrow site. It was actually where the old railway used to run through, so it might give people an idea of the narrowness of this site. And there's a proposal now, the planning notices are there on the gate, to build, I think, some 35 houses there. I've seen the plans myself. I haven't got a copy with me, but then this is radio, so it wouldn't matter. So in the 35 houses, I counted them, there are 42 parking spaces. Now, within this narrow site, there are a number of very large trees. They've probably been there about 100 years. And living in those trees are all sorts of, there is a rookery there. Rooks come and they come back to the area every year. There are pigeons, there are various birds and stuff like that. But perhaps even that apart, I know we need houses. And to be blunt, I'm sure people phone in, what about houses now? Literally opposite this, there's a very large field going up towards the racecourse. This field was sold recently. And there is proposal, there will probably be several hundred houses in this field. Again, where they're going to come out onto the road, well, that's the county council's problem. But this area is such a tight little corner, but it has these magnificent tall trees. Now, trees are very scarce, and they're particularly scarce in Tramore. There are 3 areas. There are Newtown Woods, where the Gillamine, the swimming area is. They are perhaps familiar woods to people. There are the area known as the Bucky Woods, which is where part of it is the Japanese gardens, and part of it is in private ownership. And actually, in the private part of it, some of those trees have been felled also. So the few remaining large trees are in this site. So there are only 3 areas. And the proposal to build these houses obviously will result in those trees being felled. It has to be. I don't know, I'm not a builder, but I don't know of any form of construction where you could build 35 houses in between these large trees. And of course, health and safety being what it is, even if construction was started, we probably would be told in very short time, those trees will have to come down, it's not safe. And who would want to live in a house with a gigantic tree in front of them anyway? I certainly wouldn't.
No, and like I take your point about the trees, but let me play devil's advocate
Sure,
here.
yeah,
like,
this is important.
There's very few trees in Tramore, you say, but trees are replaceable. You can plant more. They
can, but the trees of this probably took 100 years to get the size they are.
But they were sapling once.
They were saplings once. Indeed they were. And I'm sure, like, the developers will say, "Oh, we will plant trees." Where are the rooks going to go in the meantime? Like, what are you going to do with those animals that? Again, you may say there's a housing crisis for birds also, believe it or not, because many large trees have been felled. So many of them have been felled. You do see actually birds fighting aggressively over places to nest. So we have this, but we also have the benefit of the large trees, like the amount of water that they draw from the ground, and let's get into the modern jargon, the carbon footprint. So there's going to be a huge amount of energy expended building houses. The amount of fuel needed, the amount of materials, all that, the amount of wood, time, effort and stuff like that, digging up, putting in pipes, electricity, the whole thing. In the meantime, you're cutting down trees.
Yeah, and just for clarification, we're not suggesting anyone involved in that development is doing anything wrong. They
Absolutely
have their planning
not.
Permission,
I mean, the council, like their plan is submitted to the council. It's up to people. It's up to people to object to it or not. I mean, I'm just putting it out for people to be aware of it. And particularly, we're hoping to get help from our Green representatives. And they're actually, as I speak now, they're being contacted. There's a meeting going on with some of them, and they will be contacted this week. And particularly our Green MEP, because I could see it as a huge thing in the town where our Green MEP is from, that if such large trees were to be felled.
I don't know much about birds. I don't know if you do, Norman, but do rooks stay in a rookery year after year?
They do.
It's just a permanent residence?
Yeah, it's where they live, yeah.
Okay, so they might have to get evicted, but some people would argue.
I understand.
Well, in the great scheme of things.
I mean, if somebody is there at the moment and their son or daughter is waiting on a house and stuff like that. But I would say, again, like, I'd have no problem, for instance, literally across the road, as I say, the large field, they could build all the houses they want there. I have no problem with that. And there's other fields all around the area. Like, I have no problem with building houses in fields. It has to be done. It has to be done. And I would have a problem with just building houses, though. I've seen that myself as I've watched over the years Tramore being developed. And, we're all, I think it's nails on a blackboard thing when we hear the Irish Water ads, especially when I heard it yesterday as the deluge was going down the main street. No effort is made to capture any of that rainfall. It all goes away into the sea. Tramore is on a hill. Waterford is partly on a hill. All that rain that you see, it cascades down into the river. No effort over all the years has been made to capture that. We look at our flowers and the tidy towns thing. They're particularly nice around Tramore, the railway station, around the quay. These beautiful baskets bulging. They all have to be watered. We look at our streets and the road sweepers going out. I see this in my own town. Every morning the road sweeper is up and down. I'm talking about the large road sweeper, now the thing with the tanker on the back.
Yeah.
Are people aware that tanker is filled from the mains?
It's not like just...
No. I mean, I'm listening to a guy. I'm listening to a guy or a girl in a beautifully modulated voice telling me, make sure you don't leave the tap running when you're cleaning your teeth. And yet, the council themselves are filling their tankers from the mains.
That seems a bit bizarre.
So it's like, as Kermit the Frog says, it's not easy being green. But you've got to, there are simple things. And there's questions that need to be asked. And like other people are not asking them. I say, right, okay, you have to build houses. Right, you can knock trees and you can plant more trees. But the areas...
Because my point about the trees is, and I've said this before,
yes,
it's not like the Great Pyramid of Giza or the Eiffel Tower or something of which there is only one.
Yeah.
For those trees, and if they've been there 100 years, maybe they're at the end of their life. We don't know. Like
it's possible someone will survey those trees and say they're very dangerous.
Because I think we have this idea in our heads that once a tree is there for hundreds of years, that it's eternal.
Yes.
And it's going to be there benignly binding us all forever. And that's not necessarily the case.
No.
Some trees naturally reach an end of their life. Well, and maybe some
and
trees...
storms will level trees. And
things happen to trees and they can be replaced. You can plant other trees that will be tomorrow's 100-year-old magnificent.
But forgive my cynicism, but you see, this is often said, but they are not planted. These areas are not set aside. The insatiable greed for land and for housing and stuff, and the council might be looking at it, and even people might be looking at it and say, well, there's more customers, there's more population, so there's more rates, there's people paying more property tax, and all this is good thing because it's going back into the council. But what are you doing? What sort of an environment to look at a tree, to have a landscape where there are trees, and suddenly if the trees are gone, you're looking at much brighter landscape and you're thinking there's something missing here.
And I would agree with you, but if I had the keys to my new house that I wanted to live in, I really wouldn't give much of a damn about the trees. You see, I don't think. Is that the problem, that people are inherently Mayfainers?
Yeah, they are, yeah. And I mean, above the tree on the hill is the Gael skull, Philip Barron there, the Gael skull. And it's a pity the school is off for the summer, but I would love to speak to the teachers there and say, those children, they look down upon those trees there and that. And I think, would you rather look down upon the trees, or would you be brought down to the trees and shown these, or would you rather, a bunch of houses tight on a corner? There are the other issues. The Aldi was knocked because of safety and the amount of traffic going in and out. We still have the same problem with the houses.
What kind of trees are they?
I have no idea. I am not a tree person. I don't know. They are very large trees. They could be. They're not oak trees, no, but they could be a pine tree. You would have to get somebody who knows about trees. They are just very large trees. They're probably a coastal type of tree. We have very little of those large trees. Strangely, just the council being the council, in the library, I think you have someone coming on about the library. Have you, from the library, or was there somebody else talking about the library? No. Anyway, but in the Tramore library, the local area plan is there. And in the local area plan, very important sentence, it say, because of its coastal location, Tramore is very lacking in trees. And most trees should be preserved if at all possible. Okay,
say for example, I own that site and I'm the one that wants to build the 35 trees, and I'm the one that says those existing trees have to go. Yeah. Would you be happy if part of the contract I was given and the permission I was given would be to plant, how many trees are there?
Oh, there could be 40, I'd say,
40 trees in this place? Yeah. OK, well, I have to plant 80 trees somewhere in Tramore to compensate for the fact that my development will mean that those 40 have to go. Would that be a compromise?
It could be a compromise. You see, this is the thing. It could be. But
you just want to highlight it before it's too late.
Will they be made do this? Yes. And will this thing... You're still not getting around the problem of this, a very strange site. It's a very strange site. It's a rectangular site with the only access out onto the main road. It's still not getting around the safety aspect of it, which, again, we're told these things are important.
And do you live near it?
No. And I mean, I have nothing to gain or lose by this. Absolutely nothing. I was asked to come in to highlight it. I would highlight it. I certainly feel that in this area, the trees that have been there for perhaps 100 years, just because somebody wants to build a house there or build a number of houses there, you think, why there? What is it about this area that people absolutely head into it and must build something there? It is a wild area.
Tramore is beautiful. That's why people want to live there.
I understand, but how much longer could it stay beautiful? Like you can put houses. As it was, if you stand and look at the town now, the development that went out to Cliff Road, many people would think that was atrocious because it ruined the whole aspect of the Cliff Road.
You like this text that has come in. Maria, I find it amusing in a sad way that loads of trees are cut down to build housing estates, and then they turn around and call the estates after the trees they've destroyed, like Hollybrook, Chestnut Grove, etc.
Yeah, we have that too. So, we do have that. It is possible, I presume. Like somebody might say, well, we could build less houses and we could perhaps incorporate the trees. But like I say, I doubt, I would have to be cynical in that because they are very large. I certainly wouldn't like to be in a house with this thing towering over me. It would make the houses very dark. And I do feel very large trees and houses just don't mix. And any insurance company will tell you that.
A lot of people would say people trump houses. That's just the way, people trump trees. So if people need houses, then the trees
must go
and be replaced somewhere else. But I have to leave it there, Norman.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to highlight this. Can I just very briefly say one thing? That if people wish to object, and I was given this morning, the site number is 19/549. And €20 and your letter to the planning department. We're
going to get on to the developer now and get their side of it and see what they have.
And the deadline for this is the 28th of August.
Okay.
So we'll see what the developer has
Norman,
to say.
thanks very much for coming in. That's Norman Graham there, just giving his say on the trees and the tree situation there. What's your thoughts? Do you think that the trees, if the trees have to be sacrificed so that people can have houses, so be it? Or do you think, no, there's enough houses around the place and we can use those houses and leave the trees alone, and there's plenty of places that can be built on and don't use that area? Let's have your thoughts. 083 333 975, or you can call 051 846 123. Back after these.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
You are welcome back to the programme. A lot of you interested in the tree situation. A lot of you agreeing with Steph as well about the text I read at the opening of the programme about that she just doesn't like Waterford Wall. She fully appreciates the talents of everybody involved, but she doesn't like it. She thinks it's like looks kind of ghetto-ish and cheap, and she doesn't like it as a festival, if you like, because of what it does. And somebody else saying, I agree with Steph, don't like them, says Connor. I think Waterford Walls are lovely, bright and enjoyable. Oh, and talented, said Kate. Cheap looking and tacky, says somebody else. So it's, I'm with Steph on her point about Waterford Walls. I feel it takes away from our city and its character, says Christine. Porrick says, never liked the Waterford Walls idea. I didn't like it when I visited Rome, Berlin and San Francisco. It gives our city a cheap image, says Porrick. I don't think you're being a bit unfair. Like, I think it's a very colourful thing, and I think it looks very well. But I'm glad you're differentiating between the festival and whether or not you like it, and the talent of the people involved, because I think one look at it and you'd know everybody involved in it is hugely talented. Now on the trees, tell that gentleman where you can't live in a tree. Those houses are badly needed, and why should people object? People need houses. No better people than the council to cut down trees, says John in Dungarvan. So I'll be bringing you more of those comments when I deal with my next two guests who have been waiting very patiently. But keep them coming in. 083 333 975. You can use WhatsApp or you can call 051 846 123, because my next topic is very topical, if you'll pardon the pun, and one that rears its ugly head every year. And the fix to me seems pretty simple, but it doesn't seem to be pretty simple in the great sphere of officialdom. But I have a couple of people to talk to now. One of them is Janet Stubbs. She's from English. You're very welcome to the programme, Janet.
Good morning, thank you.
How are you? And I also have on the line the Mayor of the City and County, John Pratt. You're very welcome as well, John.
Good morning, Maria.
Now, I'm going to talk to you first, Janet, because this is about school buses and who gets to go on the bus and who doesn't get to go on the bus. Just explain your story with your two daughters, please.
Okay, I have two daughters. My eldest girl is going into Leaving Cert and has been getting the school bus for the past 5 years to Lismore from English. We applied in first year for Emma for the bus ticket and received it, and then every year following that we received an email to renew the ticket and pay for her ticket. You can pay twice a year or once a year. So we automatically received her ticket every year. This year, my youngest daughter is going into first year, so we had to register and apply for Abbey, and we did so a few months ago, back in April, May, to my knowledge, and we were accepted as far as we knew up till a week ago, and we never got the renewal application for my eldest girl. So my husband queried it and had to reapply for Emma. We received an email last week from Ken Robinson stating that the bus was full, there was no seats available, and that a refund would be issued. In that time, they had a few months and had accepted our applications, and we paid for our bus tickets, and we are extremely stressed, as you could imagine, especially for the Leaving Cert girl, who had her bus every year.
And if she doesn't get a seat on the bus, how will she get to school?
I have no idea what we're going to do. I am unable to physically get into my car from Aglish and drive my children to school and collect them every day, and my eldest girl will be attending after school study, which will be 6 and 8 p.m. in the evening, so that's 3 times a day, 120 minutes in the car. I'm not in a position to be able to do that. We are very upset because we contacted Bus Éireann, myself and my husband, and we were transferred all around Ireland, and we're told that there's a high volume of calls coming in, mostly complaints. A lot of people are in the same situation, and we can't get through to anybody to give us the facts, and to receive an email just saying that you're getting a refund is just unacceptable. And, not to consider, is there anything Bus Éireann can do an offer for families? We're not the only family affected. There's apparently 10 students have been refunded, and the main problem in the situation is Bus Éireann have a concessionary and eligibility status for applying for your child, and my neighbour who lives a couple of yards across the road from me applied for her son entering first year in September, and he was refused back in May. So she contacted Bus Éireann's office in Waterford, and they looked up why he was down as concessionary, and the lady investigated the matter further of the distance. We are actually eligible for Dungarvan Secondary School and Lismore. So our children choose the school themselves, and as parents you choose which secondary school you feel is best for your child. And she was told actually he is eligible, and the status was changed to eligible, and she has received her acceptance email, and 3 other children living where I live have been accepted. And the only information I could get from Bus Éireann is that it's a lottery ticket, basically.
Okay, stay on the line for me there, Janet. I just want to bring Councillor Pratt in here. John, this happens every year.
Look, this is an absolutely ludicrous situation. It's going on with a number of years now. I suppose they've just been fortunate in around the Aglish area that maybe it didn't affect them as much over the last few years, but obviously there's the numbers of students travelling to the school have obviously increased this year. And I think how would a headline look that a Leaving Cert student in this particular instance is being refused transport to the school that they've attended for the last 5 years? I mean, it's very apt that today is actually the Leaving Cert results are coming out today. But I've been contacted by at least 6 families, and I know of another 4 or 5. So there's definitely 10 plus students. There's 1 and 2 children in some of these families, that are affected by this. And I just think it's not good enough. And that, I think it's not. And I have been speaking to Ken Robinson myself in relation to this, but it's kind of seemingly they don't seem to be too affected by it, because it seems to just there's a rule regulation there, and once you go over the numbers, that's a kind of a fait accompli. Seems to be the type of blasé response you get. Plus, I've also been in contact with Minister Helen, who's actually the minister in charge of this particular area. To be fair, Minister Helen himself is away at the moment, but the office has been trying to help me in the best way that they can, and they are working on it in the background, but it's just not good enough. It's crazy stuff.
Now, common sense would say that the solution to this is either bigger buses or more buses, or maybe a double run for the same bus. I don't know, depending on the distance. Maybe go ahead.
Yeah, and I think the fact that like English is very kind of equidistant almost. It depends on what way you travel. To Dungarvan and to Lismore, it's very close either way, right? And like, to be honest with you, you would say that the simple thing is to put on another bus, especially when the numbers are so large. There are between 10 and 12, 14 students may be affected in this particular instance. But the kind of stand seems to be that, we supply X amount of buses to cover areas, and that doesn't change. That seems to be the kind of stance on it. And it's like, we are fighting the fight now, to be fair. And to be fair, I did contact Mary Butler's office as well, because I know they were doing. I didn't want us to be doing different stuff, if you're not saying that we were working together. We all try to do our own work as public representatives, but I think in this particular instance it's important that we work together on it as well, because we need to be doing the same, the same tune and trying to fight the fight for the people affected. And, hopefully, look, we're going to keep the fight up and do the best that we can from. But why this continues to happen every year is beyond me, and I just think it shouldn't happen. And the students should have a choice, and the parents should have a choice to where to send their child. And I just wonder if someone ever took on the system and actually said, would they be able to make a case? If someone actually went legal on this and said, I might want to send my child there. I don't know. I don't know how it would work out, but I wonder, would there be a case to be answered,
Janet, at what time does the bus, or has the bus for the past 5 years, picked up Emma?
They've picked up between 7:30am and 7:40am every morning.
Okay, and what time does she have to be in school at?
8:15.
8:15, okay.
Yeah, 8:15, 8:30 they start, I think.
So you picked up at 8:15 and she's at school and all but she's picked up at 7:30, 7:40 and she's at the school by 8:15.
By 8:15, yeah.
And where did you get the 120 minutes for the round trip if you had to drive her?
If I had to drive myself, if I had to go in the car and drop my two children to school and then collect the first year students when she's finished school and then collect the leaving.
Oh, I get you, yeah.
After school study.
Okay, I get you. Yeah, John.
Just to say like that, I mean, obviously a lot of the parents are hopefully working, unfortunate enough to be working. So it's not very practical for these people to be able to bring their kids to school and collect them either, you know what I mean? And I know in one instance I was dealing with one lady who was very upset as well on the phone with me, and said, you know what I mean, I might have to give up my job, in order to be able to do this, and felt very, and these were people that had paid their money, they were in on time, they've got their money in, they paid that now. I think for the year it might cost $700 for two kids. I might be wrong on that, or Janice would be able to confirm that, but they've done everything right, they've paid it up front, and they get an email 2 or 3 weeks prior to they going back to school to say, which is ridiculous. The fact that it's even so close to the timeline as well.
But if they can't get any extra buses, could they not do 2 runs with the existing buses?
They have 2 large buses, as far as I'm aware, between all the pickups. But, if you're paying a lot of money every year for a bus ticket for your child to go to school, you should be entitled to that service. And Bus Éireann they are business. They should be in a position to adjust the size of their buses every year to the amount of people, and they have a few months' notice on accepting the registration for tickets. And my eldest girl was automatically in the system for renewal every year, and the only information I could get from Bus Éireann is that they withdrew her application on the system. I don't know what error happened, but they said she's 18. They presumed she was finished school is the only information I could get.
But what I would say on this is that Bus Éireann are obviously, there's a stipulation there from government, I suppose, as to, what they can and can't provide. So unless that changes and that they're actually given the go-ahead to put on it. I mean, English is one area. We're talking about an area here where we have, I'm sure this is happening throughout the country in a lot of different areas. And, I wouldn't be surprised if this escalates over the coming weeks, to be honest with you, Maria. But we're talking about one area here that we already know.
Because every year you hear about this, and every year I'm thinking, get bigger buses. How hard is it? You can't leave children at the side of the road if they can't get to school any other way.
yeah, look, it seems to be a no-brainer, but it doesn't. That doesn't seem to come into play, unfortunately.
No. And none of this is helping you in the meantime, Janet. You still have the problem that you have, but we'll see what happens in the coming days anyway. But thanks very much for talking to me, both of you.
Thank you very much.
That's Janet Stubbs there, and you heard her story about her two daughters, Emma and Abby, and also the Mayor of the City and County, Councillor John Pratt. Is that issue affecting you? You can let me know on 083 3333 975, or you can call 051 846 123. Back after these.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
You are welcome back. A lot of people look for, this is on the housing and the tree issue that kicked off the programme this morning. A lot of people looking for houses or looking for old houses in older estates. There are so many houses vacant in settled areas that people could buy and do up, which is a very fair point. I keep saying it. I'm boring myself. I'm sure I'm boring you at this stage by saying it, but we don't have a housing crisis in this country at all. We have a supply crisis. The amount of houses that are lying vacant, the amount of houses that are just stuck, and the amount of houses that are there because of the fair deal scheme. That's all kind of bizarre that people can't make use of their house in some way while that scheme is on the way. That plan is nuts, Maria. This old railway line area should be built as parts of the Tramore Waterford Greenway, thus protecting the trees and nature, says Brian. Tell that gentleman, Maria, you can't live in a tree. These houses are badly needed. Can you please say congratulations to my daughter, Rachel Murphy, who received her Leaving Cert results. We are super proud of her, from Mum, little sister Zara and Nanny Maria. No problem at all, and I hope everybody who was getting results this morning got what you wanted, and I know you're going to hear it a lot today. And if you didn't, there are many ways to get wherever you want to go, so don't be fretting about it today. And to those of you who did well and are happy, then you enjoy this moment. It's a big deal at that age of your life. Now, Pat O'Toole is the news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal, and he is on the line now. You're very welcome to the programme, Pat.
Thank you.
Now, this is, we're just going to get an update from you on the talks that started yesterday trying to resolve this beef dispute. What's the latest for me, please?
Well, marathon talks yesterday. They assembled at Backweston in County Kildare, 6 farm organisations and Meat Industry Ireland, the processors' representative body. The Minister was present, and then Michael Dowling, the independent chair. So there was a lot of legs around the table. I think what's striking from the stories that are emerging from it is that the farming organisations, who come from a variety of viewpoints, presented a united front, as the beef plan put it, that they had a real focus, and that they put the pressure on Meat Industry Ireland to address the core issues that farmers want progress on, because the elephant in the room is price. The one thing that could not be discussed is price. The Competitions and Consumer Protection Commission, the CCPC, had already fired warning shots to the farm organisations last week, or to the beef plan last week, that what they were doing in terms of the pickets was anti-competitive and was disruptive. So they've previously had form where they've gone after farmers where they believe they're price fixing. So that's a problem. It really is a problem because it prevents open dialogue around the core issue, and the reality is that farmers are price takers. But parking that, there was progress on price transparency. The placards that would have been at the beef plants, the likes of ABP or John Grana, that then in Waterford, they or on the outskirts of Waterford, we won't get into the border issues. But they would have proclaimed that farmers are only getting 20% of the retail price. So the consumer pays, meat's not cheap.
No.
It's cheaper than it used to be, but it's not cheap. And it shouldn't be. It's a quality product. But the farmer only gets 20% of that, and the retailer and the processor are carving the rest up between them. So there's going to be an index which is going to relay back the price that the processor is getting back towards the farmer, so they can assess whether they're being offered a fair price for their cattle or not. So that would be helpful.
There's a real danger, though, isn't there, that if this continues, that they lose kind of public opinion if they have it. If people are getting laid off and other people's livelihoods are being put at risk, that's dodgy ground, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, no one wants to likely go back on the pickets. I think the farmers that were there didn't want to be there necessarily. They just felt they'd been absolutely driven to be there, like any industrial dispute. I don't think it's willy-nilly that people... and remember, they're affecting their own livelihoods as well, because farmers can't sell cattle, and as cattle are coming fit and as they're in specification, it's very expensive to not have them slaughtered at that stage, because they go out of specification and they're worth far less. So it was a very significant step for farmers to go on the gates. There's a lot at stake, and it would be extremely serious for all sides if farmers ended up going back on the gates. But there's no sign of that this morning, to be honest. I think everyone's trying to assess the progress that was being made yesterday. I think the Meat Industry Ireland have to go back to the factory management and to the owners to discuss whether they can deliver on the things that farmers are demanding of them as of yesterday. And another issue that came up was around the ability to weigh animals immediately prior to slaughter, to live weigh them, so that farmers can assess the kill out. Something that some factories seem capable of doing right now, others not. Then there's the whole issue around bonus schemes and the payment system. There's a payment system where there's a base price, but then there's a whole grid where farmers get either above or below the base price, depending on the quality of the animal. And that's due for reform, really. It's been in place for over a decade now, and I think all the farm organisations want to see a root and branch review of that and some reform. So, grounds for hope that there's at least some progress.
But I think the upshot of this is that we're going to be paying more for our beef, I'd say, because nobody's going to go, well, I'll take less of a profit so that you can have more. I mean, the world just doesn't work like that. So the upshot is, or is it, Pat, the consumer's going to end up paying more for the beef anyway?
Well, I suppose the best answer to that is that at the moment farmers are losing money on every animal they finish. And the contract between the consumer and the farmer is broken, whether it's because food is too cheap, and food has got progressively more and more cheap, especially meat is relatively cheaper. It used to be a luxury product, now it's every day. And only last week the International Panel on Climate Change, who are issuing very challenging demands of farming in terms of how we reduce our carbon footprint, and it needs to be done. But they did make the point that there's huge food wastage in the first world. About 30% of the food that's purchased is never consumed. It's thrown away. So that would indicate actually that food is possibly too cheap in terms of the environmental impact of food wastage. We would be better if food was a little dearer, if people bought it in a more discerning way. The farmer got a better price. We wouldn't have overproduction. We wouldn't have overpurchase and wastage. And it would be more efficient for everybody. So with the carbon footprint of food production, everyone needs to be mindful of efficiency in both production and consumption. So the short answer to that, will prices go up? It's unlikely that prices will go up significantly. If farmers got 30% more, that would only impact the price by maybe 5%. And that would put farmers in a decent position in terms of viability. So the impact on the consumer will be limited.
OK, we leave it there. Pat, thanks very much for talking to me this morning.
You're very welcome.
See you, bye-bye. That's Pat O'Toole there, news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal. Let's hope we've seen an end to the pickets at the meat factories and that it all gets resolved to everyone's satisfaction, hopefully. Lots of reaction coming in about trees. I'm going to bring some of those to you shortly. And after the break, we have another parent to talk to who also has issues with her son not being able to get a seat on the bus. Back after these.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tramore.
You are welcome back. Back to school buses. This texter said, this is so stressful for parents to try and get children to school. Maybe, see what you think about this idea now. I think this is a great idea, but we know with the whole insurance thing, it's probably not a runner, but I think it's a good idea. Maybe the schools should set up their own service and they might get some extra income for the school. What do you think of that? Do you think that's a good idea? Let me know on 083 33 975 and have somebody else to talk to now who's in a similar situation. Helen, good morning.
Good morning, Maria.
How are you? Are you at your wit's end?
Yes, I am totally at my wit's end. I mean, that's a mild word to put it like that. First of all, I want to thank John Pratt for taking me so seriously last week when I emailed him. I got an email from Bus Éireann to say they couldn't put my son Adam Hallahan on the bus. And when I rang them, they just told me there was no seats available. And I said, can you put him onto another bus? And they said, no, it's not my route. I stay where I'm put.
And how many years has your son been on the bus, Helen?
My son has been on this bus 4 years on the bus. And I paid my ticket in June. I paid my money up front for the end of June. And we were told we had to have, our deadline was the 26th of July. And just last week, I found out that my son had no place on the bus. I rang them up. They couldn't give me any explanation. I asked them, was there anybody in my situation? They wouldn't tell me. They would give me no information. I asked them the name of the bus driver. They wouldn't tell me. I asked them, could I speak to Ken Robinson, who signed the email?
I think, to be fair, they're not allowed to give you that information now, Helen. I think, to be fair, like, they're legally not allowed to just give you information randomly like that.
I know that, but, like, really what I'm trying to do is get to the bottom of it. I just wanted to speak to somebody. Eventually, they gave me the name of a bus driver, and that's all they could give me.
And what are your options now if Adam doesn't get on the bus?
My options are that I get up in the morning at 7 o'clock. I bring Adam over to the Blackwater School. I leave my 10-year-old child on his own until I come home. And I'm definitely gone 40 minutes.
And do you have to go to work then after that?
I have nobody to look after my child. He's a 10-year-old on his own in the house. And I have to come back and get him ready and bring him to school. And then I have to go on and go to work myself, which I will be late for work at this stage. I have to do the same thing again in the evening. I mean, that's ridiculous. You just can't go on like that 9 months in the year.
And I
don't know what I'm going to do. Every other mother's in the same situation.
There doesn't seem to be any answer to this. I mean, I don't understand how you can pay your money and not have a place on the bus.
Well, we should have been told last year. We should have been told in June. You know, that we weren't even given any idea whatsoever that there was no tickets coming out.
But would it have made a difference if you were told in June? Could you still be in the same situation?
No, I'd still be in the same situation. But maybe we'd be able to come up with something. Maybe something would have happened with the schools. Maybe the schools could have put pressure on Bus Éireann. I don't know.
You sound very stressed about it, Helen.
I am very stressed about it, yes. I mean, it's enough to get a child up in the morning, get everybody going to school, get yourself out, but having this extra pressure every morning of the week, I mean, it's a toll. You know, it's a real toll on me, and I'm doing it on my own. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. It doesn't make sense just to have this. It's not feasible for any mother to do it. Whether we carpool, whatever we do, it's still not feasible.
And it's so up in the air that you can't make any plans, really.
I can't make any plans. I don't know what's happening. I got a call then yesterday from Bus Éireann to say that they actually tried to put Adam on 2 other bus stops. Now, they left a voicemail for me. I rang them back. When I rang them back, I have the same situation. They don't know who left the call. Well, the lady did leave her name, but when I rang back, I forgot her name. But they still couldn't find out. They couldn't look up my file, even though I was able to give my identity number. They couldn't tell me what 2 bus stops they tried to put Adam on. I asked for that to be put out on an email to me and to give it to me. And I still haven't heard back. I mean, they said they would do it, but They don't know when the email would come out. And, that doesn't matter to me, because to me, that's only just putting me on hold the whole time, just to hopefully that I'll just give up on them. Nobody's going to give up on them. Nobody can afford to give up on them. Nobody can afford to lose their jobs. So nobody's going to give up on them, so they better get their act together.
Okay, Helen, I hope something happens and you get some sort of good news. Particularly haven't been on here today, so we'll stay in touch with you and see what happens. And thanks very much for telling the story to me.
Thank you, Marion.
See you. Bye-bye. Bye. That's Helen there with a similar situation. Do you know what? Somebody texted in earlier, and I can't find the text. I look at the text, and you listen to these, and I'll be back in a minute.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tramore.
Yeah, I found the text I was looking for. It came in from Bridget. It said, "Good morning, Maria. Our son got a ticket from Bus Éireann in the first year for BCS Lismore from Aglish, but hasn't been granted one now for second year, even though we paid for our ticket on time and received our acknowledgement." Surely that's some kind of a contract there. Thought everything was sorted till an email last week saying due to numbers he wasn't being granted a ticket. It does seem like an extremely unfair and ludicrous system that a child gets a ticket starting off and then doesn't after that. Surely if you're granted transport in the first year, you'd imagine that should be it. That came in from Bridget, and that is that is so simple that if Adam is starting school in such a year and he's going to be there for the next 5 or 6 years, he gets a ticket every year. Then the people who are applying after that are the people don't have a ticket. So the numbers of the buses that you're going to need. It's common sense that if you have this stupid lottery system where 1 year one kid gets another ticket and another year a kid doesn't get a ticket, it seems bizarre. If you're on the bus in the first place, you stay on the bus unless you move to school, and then the people who don't have a ticket are the people that you have to cater for. Excuse me, I'm losing me rag here, because they are the excess people, so you know exactly how many there are. Anyway, enough out of me. It's time for the news at 11 o'clock with Sinead.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tramore.
You are welcome back to the programme. Definitely a topic that's exercising a lot of you this morning is the whole issue of trees and school buses, because they're the main things that we've been talking about. Joe says, tell those folks looking for houses, hold on, there's an international financial crash forecast for next year. Optimistic there, Joe. Jennifer says, I know this is not going to be a popular point, but since when is everybody else's responsibility to get children to school? Why do parents constantly complain about the cost of schools and ferrying children back and forth? It's your child, your responsibility. Harsh words there from Jennifer. Do you agree with her? That's not our Jennifer, by the way, in case you're having a go at her on the phone. It's Jennifer, random Jennifer, who just texted the programme on 086 083 3333 975. That's our text line. Another texter says, hi Maria, this country is ludicrous in this day and age. Bigger population, less buses, bigger crime rate, less guards. The list is endless, says a texter. So keep them coming on the text line. You can use WhatsApp for that, or you can call 051 846 123. Now I'm joined in studio by Pat Flanagan. Pat is the Waterford man. Welcome back. He's a 3-time All-Ireland winning trainer with Kerry, and he also is a lecturer in sports science at IT Tralee. And the reason that you're welcome, thanks very much for coming in, but the reason that we're talking to you is this apparent rise in steroid abuse, which is very worrying, because I think a lot of people are into their fitness, and we talk a lot about how young women are susceptible to images and how they should look and everything. But I think, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but steroid abuse is mostly young men, is it?
Young men.
Yeah, and that like they just talk into that microphone there for me, that they come under the same sort of pressures but in a different way. So what are we talking about here in terms of steroids, first of all?
Basically, they're anabolic steroids, which will give you bigger muscles quicker based on the type of training that you do. So lots of young men use the gyms, do weight training, resistance type training, and to get the body beautiful, the muscles, ripped. The six-pack, ripped, whatever, that effect. The idea is that anabolic steroids or other forms of androgenic aids would give you those muscles and that physique faster, and that's often linked with confidence, that they feel more confident.
Okay. Is it a tablet?
It can be a tablet, it can be an injection, capsules, it can be creams, gels, it can be different forms, but mainly it's tablet form that it's taken.
And I presume I can't go to the doctor and say, give me some anabolic steroids, please.
That's where they originally came from. That's where anabolics were originally...
So do they have a good use then?
Well, they are. Initially they were used generally for people with delayed puberty, young men with delayed puberty.
Okay.
So to effectively affect puberty, to increase testosterone, which happens during puberty. But then it was used as a drug mainly for athletes, sports athletes, power lifters, athletes, throwers, sprinters, power sports, rugby, American football, those type of sports were power and size, physique.
Under supervision though? Or
this is what
I'm trying to get.
They're illegal in sport.
They're always illegal.
They're illegal in all sports. There's
So if I was trying, or if my son or whatever was trying to access them, he'd have to be going down a dodgy route in the first place.
They're generally illegal. They'd be rarely used for rare conditions. Okay. So they're generally an illegal banned substance in sport, and a danger. And what's the reason why it's becoming more popular as an art in papers and in the news is that there is an increase in use. And more awareness about the bad effects, which are significantly life-threatening.
And I suppose you'd say to yourself, well, it's after doing this for me after such amount of time, maybe if I up the dose or take more, I'll get even bigger.
Absolutely, and that's the way it works. So, and not only that, it's used, that's referred to with people who take a stacking. So they'll take increasing numbers and different types of steroids to have a bigger and greater effect. And the more they take, the greater the risk. And strangely, often it's to give more masculine physique. But in effect, one of the major side effects of steroid use is that you become more feminine.
Really?
Yeah. So men develop breasts. Their testes shrink. Their sperm count drops. Their hair falls out. So the actual, it's a really kind of strange balance, but what they think is helping them become more masculine.
Counterproductive, what they want to do.
And then the life-threatening element is tumours, cancer, kidney failure, and particularly the big one is heart disease, because one of the major effects scientifically of steroids is that it decreases your good cholesterol. So you have cholesterol in your body, so you have very low density and low density. They're bad cholesterol, but high density cholesterol clears out your arteries, and steroids completely attacks the high density cholesterol. So your ability for your heart to stay clear. So that's why they say that the medium to long term effect can be heart attack.
And what would you probably would, because would you know by looking at somebody that's a steroid thing? Because we often see people in the Olympics and you'd be people going like, oh, thinks there's a bit of steroids going on there. Well, anecdotally, of course.
They're all so muscular in the Olympics. They all look, and I suppose the guess is at that level there is an amount of illegal use of different drugs. But say the concern would be your youngster, your late teenager, your early 20s male who does a lot of gym work and is trying to bulk up. One of the immediate effects would be acne. So again, it wouldn't help appearance, right? Yeah. So acne, hair might start to fall out, and the other big one is mood swings.
With this aggression associated with it.
Referred to as roid rage, right? And it is fairly common, and they found that in studies in mice and rats and in people that increased steroid use will cause mood swings. But what happens sometimes then is that steroids are usually taken in cycles. So the person will take maybe an 8 to 12 week cycle. It's when you come off, you can develop more depression. Oh. So there's an element of depression and anger and rage. So there's concern that what happens then, people start to take other drugs to counterbalance the effect of the steroids. It's called polydrug syndrome. So to counterbalance what they're trying to do muscle-wise, they'll take other stuff or more steroids.
Oh, God.
Net effect is bad. And the article there, the concern you'd see there, I know there's people reporting with a problem, but the big concern is that they nearly confiscated almost 500,000 illegal steroid tablets last year. So that's a real concern.
So I presume people just go online and go
they're readily available, quite getting cheaper and cheaper. But the danger is you don't know what you're getting. Yeah. You don't know the level of testosterone. Is there other chemicals in it? and then you don't know the effect, and then everybody is affected differently. The big concern, the younger you are now, an interesting recent study in the States showed that there isn't the amount of, you say, secondary school type children has levelled off. But they think it's still increasing in the college age group and the sports age group, that kind of senior sport.
And we do forget about that section of people. All the focus is on how susceptible women are to, the images that they see on Instagram and the perfect body and everything. Yeah. But we do forget that young men, particularly growing up in this age of, filters and Photoshopping and everything, and the body beautiful and wanting their own version and to look as good as they can, are just as susceptible as the girls. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see it, like the online people, putting up pictures of themselves. I'm in the gym, and and obviously if you look at the sports people, when they take off the jerseys at the sport, they're more ripped. Sorry, they're in better shape than they were before. Like GA players, maybe 20 years ago, when they took off the jerseys, might have a bit of a pot belly or something like. But if they took it off now, everyone would have pot bellies. So there is a pressure, and it's for younger and younger. And then I suppose it's seen as masculine now to be big and muscular. The good thing about it, just on a positive, right, is that you can get all those muscles and all that strength without steroids. With a proper training program in the right gym, in the right centre, with the right people, putting a bit of hard work in and having the right diet.
Which isn't a bad lesson for anyone to learn either. Like we don't have to have everything immediately.
Steroids aren't worth it.
And do women take steroids?
They do, not as much at all. It would mainly sports people. Effectively, is women, when they take steroids, anabolic steroids, will start turning to become men.
Okay.
So they grow facial hair, their breasts reduce, their voice deepens, right? Men become more like women, which is really,
bizarre,
really...
isn't it?
Basically, it's a hormonal thing. So the testosterone suppresses the male hormone in the men.
The dominant one is.
And then the estrogen increases. So they become more like women, and women become more like men. So again, for the men, the young men, it's really strange that in actual fact you're putting a substance in your body which is going to make you less like a man.
It's bizarre, and hopefully anyone who's heard this morning and all the side effects and the dangers, and they're very, very real dangers, and seem to be with the growth in, if you'll pardon the pun, the growth in steroid abuse, seem to be really... People should be aware of that. I can never understand people buying things online when you're not going to know what they are.
Again, some people, they might link up with someone in the gym who would be selling them to them. Again, another interesting link in the research would show that when you start taking steroids, because of the hype and the mania, and a bit more agitated and often angry, and also you have the pain from the training, they sometimes take... marijuana, drugs that would calm you down and relax you, to kind of balance the hype of the effect.
And
of
can
the
you just stop taking them, or do you have to wean yourself off
absolutely.
them? Or what's the deal?
There is a high incident link with depression, like any drug. When you start reducing the dose. Yeah. Now, it is built in the system. Sports people would take maybe, say, for 12 weeks, a certain dose of steroids, and then reduce for 12 weeks. But what happens is then they should stop then, but they don't. They do another cycle, and then what happens? The cycles become more longer and heavier doses. So it's a dangerous cycle. Yeah.
Don't. With the very the things that you've mentioned now, I don't think any fellow would want to have those things happen to him.
I think that once they're aware of the risks and if they're prepared to take that risk, but as I said, they will get, for a sports person, they will get 95% of the strength gains that they want without any assistance, any supplement at all. The body is very good to respond to training. You don't really need to, and funny enough, will increase its testosterone levels when you do resistance training. You don't need steroids.
Pat, thanks very much for talking to me. That's Pat Flanagan there, who's a lecturer in sports science at IT in Tralee, and of course he's from Waterford, and 3-time All-Ireland winning trainer with Kerry, which we won't hold that against you. All right, Pat, thanks very much for coming in. 083 3333 975 for your texts, or 051 846 123 for your phone calls. Back with more for you after these.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Mulligan's, we are closer to you.
You are welcome back to the programme. This caller called Mary says it's about time our 4 representatives got involved in that government and should be up there shouting for us. I was in Ardkeen yesterday, says Mary, and there's people out there terrified over what might happen to them with heart problems, etc. Older people don't want to be ferried to Cork or Dublin. They want to be taken care of in their own county. Back to the trees in Tramore and the houses. Ask this gentleman if his son or daughter was waiting for a house, would he prefer the tree to be safe for his family member to have a home? And I think I did put that point to him, and to be fair, like he's only like he's not going to be chaining himself to the trees or anything. You know, he was just wanted to make people aware of it. His point was that, you know, while the planning permission is all everything is above board there, he just wanted people to be aware of it, because there's no point in giving out about it if you're looking at the stumps of trees or those beautiful trees that you love to have disappeared. So he just was trying to highlight it before it happens. And Mary says we all need somewhere to live, including birds and animals. We seem to forget that birds and animals have lived in these trees for many, many years. Yes, we can replace trees, but they're not doing so. We're slowly killing our planet and all that live on it. We don't own this planet. We're only here for a time. Why not care for it? I suppose you're right, but then everybody can plant a tree. There's nothing stopping anybody from just planting trees in their own garden as well. But I take the point that you're trying to make. You know, we do have this idea that the planet is here for our delectation. In actual fact, if we piss off the planet, then we won't be let live on it for much longer, because the planet will just get rid of us. There is shortage of social housing. You look up from the beach, the woods are the only green that's left in Tramore, says a texter. Where am I? Look, what species are the trees in Tramore? Sycamore are useless for a while. Whatever, there's a load of rooks living in it, so something seems to like it anyway. On Waterford Walls, I think the Waterford Walls project is a lovely addition to our city. The originality and colour gives a huge impact to anyone walking, cycling or driving through Waterford. I'm old enough to remember so many dull and drab large walls around Waterford through the years. Long live Waterford Walls, says Déise, on the Dunmore Road. So you keep your texts and calls coming in, 083 3333 975, and let's know how you got on in the Leaving Cert. I'm sure there's great excitement in houses all over the place this morning, with people getting the results and celebrating or pondering what to do next, and enjoy every minute of this moment if you got it, and don't overstress if you didn't, which is probably sums up what my next guest is going to say, who's Stella O'Malley, psychotherapist and author of Cotton Wool Kids, and just about the whole emotion that today's results will bring. Morning, Stella. It's such a big day, and like I'm trying to remember back to my own Leaving Cert, and you think it's the be all and end all of your life at that time, don't you?
Well, it really feels like it is. I remember myself, and it was just so much focus, and I don't think it helps the likes of us talking about it on the media, and yet we inevitably have to, because everybody else talks about it. So we're kind of all in a bind that everybody's obsessed with the Leaving Cert, which is making us all the more obsessed with the Leaving Cert. And the more people can step back and say, actually, you know what, the Leaving Cert, like, while it was a big deal on the day, it hasn't shaped my life. It hasn't shaped my life as much as I thought it would, and certainly as much as I was led to believe it would.
Do parents have a big role to play here? Because I'd say their reaction is crucial.
Well, I find parents fall into it. They're just like yourself and myself, thinking, oh, you know, it's not that important, and, you know, all that matters is that they're happy and that they can get their course. There's a lot of different ways to get courses, especially now more than ever. However, what happens is, almost like everything else in life, when there's a hype, you fall into it. So when your own child is in sixth year, it's like you suddenly lose it yourself because everybody else has. And it's really understandable. I'll be watching myself like a hawk, thinking, now watch me fall into it just year after year talking about the hype, and then I'll fall into it myself. So I hope I don't, but it seems to be incredibly easy to fall in. If everybody is talking about it, it's very hard. It's very infectious. It's very hard not to fall in. I think, actually, I really better focus on this.
And also, I suppose, I don't think... Well, I think there's very few parents who would actually be angry with their child if they don't do well. That they might be concerned and worried for their future, maybe.
I think that the feeling of lost potential hits parents very hard. I think when parents know that the child could have done better, that he or she could have studied harder, or got distracted by their PlayStation, or, something like, and these things do happen. So, they get into a relationship that last year and they completely get distracted, and they therefore don't reflect well. Their exams don't reflect their ability. And I think that hits parents actually often harder than it hits the child, because the child kind of knows, is actually feeling it, is experiencing it for the last year, so kind of knows it's happening, while the parents out there thinking, oh my God, they've just snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. I can't quite believe that they've just done that. It can be very disappointing, but it's not their day, and it's very important for parents to realise, well, actually, this is my child's day. It's not about the parents, and it's not about their disappointment. And we're human. Parents want to boast as much as any other parent about all the great results their child gets, and then they have to feel disappointed genuinely that the child maybe hasn't done as well as they could have done. B, that the child won't get the course that they might have wanted, and C, see their sisters and their sister-in-laws and their wider relatives and friends saying what fabulous results their children got, and they have to bite their lip and say, yeah, us too, kind of.
Yeah. And I think it's also a good time to see how well you've taught your child to be resilient. We've spoken about this many times, Stella. And if your child crumples at this maybe very minor, some lesser mark than they thought they were going to get, and if they crumple, then that'd be a wake-up call to me if I was a parent.
It is, but today wouldn't be the day I'd start breathing resilience at them. Maybe in a week. No. Today I'd be tender and gentle and try not to have on your face, oh my God, I know you were on that PlayStation all year. Try to, because there's nothing more exposing than a public disappointment. It's very hard for all of us to bear, and that's the thing about the results in the Leaving Cert, is everybody's asking you how many points did you get, and everybody's asking you, did you get the course you wanted, i.e., were your expectations for yourself aligned with how good you are? That's a very hard question to answer if you actually say, actually, I was overambitious. I thought I was better than I was. And I fought this point with teachers and with parents who all told me I wasn't as good, and it turns out they're all right. These are big hits to the psyche. And I wouldn't like to have to do that today. I wouldn't like to have to face people down and say, yeah, I thought I was better, but I'm not. It turns out a lot of people who I thought were fools actually knew better than me. And this is very embarrassing and humiliating. And I think tenderness and gentleness and their favourite meal and softness. And then, in a few days, because you have to organise yourself as the CEO and where you're going to now. But timing does matter. And I do think give them a few days before you start saying, right, let's get at this.
Yeah.
And I literally mean a few days. I wouldn't really say much today. Wouldn't talk very much about the future. Just let today be today. Today they're getting the body blow or they're not getting the body blow. But if they are, it's quite a big one, and I'd be gentle around it so that they can be resilient in the future.
And I think you're right, and I also think you're right what you said at the start, that at this time of year, every year everybody's talking about the poor people who don't do well, but we have to big up the people who will do well and not take away from their achievement either.
Yeah, to a point, but I don't really buy it, because I think well done, congratulations, well done, you're very good. But I do think it's not really a predictor of success. It hasn't really shown itself to be very good in your Leaving Cert. While it's very satisfying, it's very good for a person's confidence. It's very good for a good start at college, which does make a difference. As a predictor of success, it isn't a great indication.
No.
So therefore, I'd say. And I can include myself in this, and that's why I'm maybe a little bit bitter. I got a good Leaving Cert, and there's sometimes a little bit of an arrogance, and I include myself in that, in thinking that they've kind of nailed the hardest thing, and life will be easy now. And it's just such a falsehood. It sets up 18-year-olds to really fall off a cliff with disappointment when maybe they find college hard or they might find life hard. They actually think they've kind of nailed it with their Leaving Cert. And it's just so untrue. And I wouldn't big them up, because I think they're so bigged up. They've been bigged up by teachers. I was bigged up. I was that kid. You know what I mean? And I came out of school with this presumption that I kind of knew so much. And I had it so sussed. And my God, I really got a cold shower when I realised, actually, just because you're good at reading and writing and maths doesn't make you cleverer than everybody else. It just doesn't. I have a different type of brain. That memorising stuff came easy to me. It did not indicate I was going to be a great success in life. And other people who just don't have that brain have kind of suffered the likes of me getting 10 out of 10 and A's for years. I think they're plenty picked up. And
but
in a
what
way,
I suppose
life is quite hard.
Well, I suppose what I meant was that, you know, we all have to be so sensitive to everybody these days, and they might feel they can't relish their moment as much if their friends didn't do so well. You know what I mean? That they can't go, yes, like big themselves up, I suppose.
Take their moment, because there's nothing more pleasant than doing a job, assessing it, looking at it, and pulling it off and getting what you want. That's it should be a very intense, profound, private satisfaction of, I nailed that.
Yeah, you did it.
Right. Yeah, and it's often quite private, though. It's kind of because you know when you've done really well. You follow me, and you know, yes, I did it. I did it. And it's a really pleasant, but I would say quite private. I don't think you need the whole world telling you you're fabulous.
And I think for the people who didn't do well, I think at that age, and probably for a lot of ages, anything in the realms of humiliation and embarrassment is the worst feeling in the world.
It's so public. It's so definite. How many points did you get? It's so clear where you fall, and everybody will be asking them it. And I remember one boy, he was coming to me, he had huge difficulties with his mum, and the two of them had been attending counselling, and you know, he didn't get the results he wanted, and he ran upstairs and he locked himself in his bedroom and turned off his devices, which was really going nuclear in his world, and wouldn't go out with his mates. And his mom, who had had so many fights with him over his usage of Xbox, I think it was, and that day, she said when he went to the toilet, he left the room to go to the toilet, she threw in his favourite bar of chocolate onto the bed. And later on, his mates called to the house because they couldn't get through to him. And she said, no, he's got a raging toothache. I'm bringing him to the dental hospital. And, you know, it sounds very mollycoddling, but the next week when he came in to me, he was stunned. And he said, you know what? I didn't know how much she loved me.
Aww.
I know.
It's the little things, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was very profound at the time because they had been killing each other. And she, more than anybody else, had predicted this Leaving Cert disaster that did unfold. And yet, when it came to it, when he was drowning, she was there, shoulder to shoulder. And that's really, really deep. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do think parents have an opportunity today to show it doesn't matter what you're going through. I am there. I'm there for you. And that's so, so profound. When you're feeling hurt and somebody says, no, I'm here. I'm shoulder to shoulder with you.
Common sense, as always, Stella. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you very much.
Stella O'Malley, psychotherapist and author of Cotton Wool Kids. She's written other books as well, but that's a particularly good one if you have small kids and you don't want them to grow up to be little balls of anxiety. I need to take a break now, and I'll be back with more for you after these.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
You are welcome back to the programme now. Cathriona O'Riordan is a pharmacist affiliated to the Irish Pharmacy Union, and she's been waiting very patiently on the line. Cathriona, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
No bother. Now, the reason that I'm talking to you is that this idea that, first of all, the idea of free contraception, but secondly, the idea that Irish pharmacists could play a big role in this, if the Irish Pharmacy Union gets its way.
That's correct. So what we're advocating for really is improving access to birth control, and thereby obviously more women will use it and obviously hopefully reduce the rate of unintended pregnancy. So it has been looked at internationally and more recently here in Ireland through a public consultation, and they identify the barriers being cost, number one, but secondly actually just literally accessing it, getting your appointment, getting your prescription, getting back to the pharmacy. So we have built on what they've done in the USA, Canada, New Zealand, and proposed a scheme whereby you would be able to come to the pharmacy directly, have a consultation and the appropriate checks with your pharmacist, and then proceed to get the appropriate medication.
That sounds like a brilliant idea, because I always found that when you have to go to the doctor, because I take a thyroid medicine, I can buy that over the counter in Spain. I have to go to the doctor and pay the doctor the 50 or 60 quid and get the prescription here for 6 months. It seems bizarre to me that different countries have different rules for this kind of thing.
Yes, and I suppose we're very much confining this to the contraceptive pill and the patch, etc. But because it was a very, very safe medication, and it has been shown, even WHO, the World Health Organization, have advocated that it be made free without prescription worldwide. I suppose other medications over the counter and what they do in other countries, I could have reservations.
No, I was just using that as an example that
etc. Whereas in the situation of contraception, women know themselves very well. They know their own bodies very well, and with the appropriate extra training, building on our knowledge that we already have of all the medicines involved, sit down, do the blood pressure check, do the weight check. There's no blood test required, obviously. We can, together with the woman, we can help make the choice and see what's best for her. And as it's been shown worldwide to really improve uptake and choice for women.
And I presume I'm not standing in the middle of the pharmacy getting all this done. There's some private consultation room or something.
Yes, of course. And in fairness, consultation rooms are mandatory in pharmacies, and I think we make loads of use of them. I mean, I find myself in and out of there all day long because, people want to show you maybe something, a little rash or something in private. They want to have a conversation in private. They might want to discuss the medication that you're dispensing to them. So no, there's plenty of space. And of course, we're providing the emergency contraception since 2011, safely and appropriately for women. So it's a conversation I suppose we're used to having, because as part of that we do discuss regular contraception with the patients. So it's just an expansion of that, and actually the HSE's own research has shown that almost half of women prefer to get it directly from the pharmacy.
And what sort of a response have you gotten? Because I'm kind of struggling to see a downside to this, unless I was a doctor and I wasn't going to get me 50, 60 quid to issue a prescription. Has anyone come back at you with any opposition?
No, in fairness, the response is very, very positive, I think. This is in line with the recommendation from the Oireachtas Committee on the 8th Amendment. It's in line with, I suppose, what patients want. And even from other healthcare professionals, I think what you want at the end of the day as a healthcare professional is your patients looked after appropriately and professionally. And I think, it increases access. I mean, for example, we started doing the flu vaccine, and questions like that would have been posed. And really, actually, overall, it was found that more people actually went to their GP than used to for flu vaccine, and also more people went to pharmacies. So overall there was an increased uptake. So it was a positive public health outcome, and that's what we're looking for here, is a positive public health outcome. And
how much are we saving? I mean, how much it would be costing a month if you had to go to pay for it?
Well, prescription-wise, it can vary. Look, it depends on what you're on. So for maybe the cheapest pill, it could be something around €6-7. For more expensive things like the patch or the ring, it could be up to 20 or that way. But I think really getting the prescription is a huge barrier, especially if you're working, you might actually be able to afford the €10 a month or whatever it might turn out to be. But you've just you've got to maybe take time off work for an appointment. It's difficult to get appointments, so I think and people are they're in a space where they're very comfortable, I think, talking to their local pharmacist about private matters, and so they'd be very, very happy. We're open late hours. You don't need an appointment to see us. So I think people would really welcome being able to pop in, sit down, and appropriately choose what suits them best.
And would pharmacists be doing this out of the kindness of their hearts now, Cathriona, or would they be expecting the government to pay something to the pharmacists?
It would completely depend. Like, our scheme proposes two options, because, as I say, the government themselves have recommended that contraception be free, and it would be, I presume, in line with the medical care scheme, etc. So it would be that the government would, yes, ultimately, or the taxpayer, I think is what we'd have to point out always, would ultimately, pay for whatever that appropriate price is. And also, a bit like the emergency contraception, pharmacists will charge a fee for their time and their professionalism if the state isn't subsidising it. So there's a very broad kind of spectrum there, and the most important thing really is the access, that people can get this medication when they need it, and thereby, as I say, more women will use it, we'd be hoping.
Cathriona, thanks for talking to me this morning.
Okay, thanks very much.
See you, bye-bye. That's Cathriona O'Riordan there of the Irish Pharmacy Union. What do you think of that idea? Does it sound like a good idea? Would you be thinking, thanks be to God, I don't have to go to the doctor and keep paying the money and getting the prescription? It seems to make absolute sense to me, but if I'm missing something, let me know on 083 3333 975. And I know there's lots of Leaving Cert results happening this morning, and, you know, good news, bad news, whatever. Have a listen to this, because this texter says, where am I looking at? Just listening to your talk on the Leaving Cert, and I was talking to Stella O'Malley there. My daughter has a degree, 2 masters, and is just completing her PhD. 20 years ago, she got a dismal Leaving Cert result because she didn't study enough and had lost interest in school. So that's kind of the point we were making, that, you know, even if you don't get good news today, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Like, you will be able to get where you want to go, and don't be over stressing about it today. And if you did get everything that you want, enjoy it. But don't go on the rip tonight now and start, you know, disturbing people in their beds who didn't have their Leaving Cert or do their Leaving Cert. And be careful. Anyone who's out and about tonight celebrating, be careful and watch out for each other. Now let's see what Mr. Dermot Power has for us today.
The Days of Our Lives on WLR.
Brought to you by Home Instead Senior Care Waterford, helping seniors stay at home and maintain their independence. Homeinstead.ie.
I heard on the news that they are telling us to eat less meat because the cows are doing too much farting and causing climate change. Now here's a story from a time when very few people ate meat. One of water's most extraordinary and devastating floods occurred on January the 30th, 1869. The tide rose to an extraordinary height, sweeping all before it. The Jarvies, that's the men on the horse and cars, became watermen and got boats and turned many an honest penny, conveying soaked travellers from shore to shore on the way home. Despite the obvious danger, many of the more adventurous youths stripped to the waist, and they could be seen bobbing around on casks and planks and barrels and other improvised rafts all along the quay. The ground floor of the houses soon became flooded, the residents all being driven to the upper stories. Among the many extraordinary incidents was a report of a man, Dr. Connolly, catching a trout in his study, that's in his room. John Street and its environs suffered very badly. The lanes off of Johnstown were swept over by the tide, the inhabitants narrowly escaping their lives. The water all but covered the low-lying houses. A child was rescued from the top floor by his father, swimming in through the upper window and rescuing him. In Tramore, many of the large coping stones of the storm wall were carried away and the foundations of the wall was undermined. The sea broke through an embankment and flooded 300 acres of reclaimed land. The large masts of a ship which lay on the beach were carried a quarter of a mile inland. At Passage East, the tide rose to a fearful height and it was feared that the whole low-lying parts of the village would be submerged. Large boulders were driven up on the shore a considerable distance and boats were swept inland some 50 yards from high watermark. So the next time now you're going to break wind, ask yourself, is this going to cause climate change? Talk to you soon.
The Days of Our Lives on WLR.
Brought to you by Home Instead Senior Care Waterford, celebrating 10 years of providing leading home care for Waterford seniors. Homeinstead.ie.
It's a whole new conversation. Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's Pharmacy, over 60 years together. Thanks to you.
You are welcome back to the programme. Carol says, congratulations to my granddaughter Rebecca Irish on her brilliant results in her Leaving Cert and in her future career. I'm sure there's loads of good wishes going around like that this morning. And I think Andy's up after me. I'm sure he's going to get loads of requests as well by people congratulating the people who did the Leaving Cert. On school transport, same problems every new school year with transport. Trouble is no one is accountable and even knows what's going on. You can't talk to anyone because no one is in charge. Well, there is somebody in charge and we're trying to get in touch with them on the programme to just get their side of it, because there's two sides to every story, and see what the deal is and why it seems to be so difficult and such a problem every year. And I just can't help but thinking, if a problem is a problem every year, then it's really about time to sort it so that it's not a problem next year. This texter said, my child is starting first year, and after getting refused her seat on the bus, my husband and I are both working full time, so we don't know how we're going to get her to and from school. It's stressful enough starting in a new school, never mind getting no seat on the bus. So you can keep your texts and comments coming in to 083 3333 975. That is how you do it. You can use WhatsApp as well. Now, my final guest in studio is Cathriona English. Cathriona English from the Manana Daisha Women's Group, and you're very welcome. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And you're here to tell us about a protest that's happening on Rice Bridge this coming Friday, and this is all about the cervical check scandal.
That's right. It's at 5 o'clock on the bridge on Friday in Waterford City. We're just fed up. We just don't know what to do next, so we were thinking just a protest just to show how angry that we are and that this is not okay. It's ongoing. It started off as a blade of grass, and now it's a hayfield. Like, it's just tumbleweed after tumbleweed of scandals. The story broke last May. Only for Vicky Phelan, we would never know anything about this. But the problem started back in 2011. So this is years of mess-ups and cock-ups by cervical check. So it's not a one-off thing. It's one thing after another. So we want to know why and what are they doing to fix it? What are they actually doing? They don't seem to. It's not their top priority. Women's health is not a top priority in this country. And we've seen that from story after story. Only yesterday, Claire in Cork, Claire Cashin was on Cork Radio yesterday. When I listened to her story, I actually felt sick. Women are just left to deal with their own problems with nowhere to turn for help.
Is there two strands to this? There's the strand of the people who have gotten bad results and false results, and they're in a position that they should never have been in because of a cock-up, as you say, along the system. Then there's a backlog, which you can understand. The best will in the world, Simon Harris said, if you're worried, have another test, be grand.
4,000 women.
And you can understand that, but the system wasn't able to cope with that backlog. So now you have a whole load of worried women going, well, am I one of these people who got a wrong thing? And that's adding to the situation.
Like, if you're getting a letter back from your smear test after waiting months for it, are you confident in what they're saying on that letter? Is it real? Like, if they're saying you're okay, are you okay? And if they're saying you're sick, are you sick? Nobody knows. There's no confidence at all, and we need assurance. We need to be told what they're doing to fix it. All we're being told is apologies, or they're blaming IT glitches, or they're blaming this. We're not getting heard of what they're actually doing to fix it.
So what do you want to happen on Friday, the 16th of
I'd
August?
love everybody to come out. We need bodies. We need physical bodies to show the public's anger and that it's not okay. We're just imploring people to come out. Don't leave it up to anybody else. Just come out, put child in the buggy and come out. We want this done in Ireland. We want this done on Irish soil. Stop sending out our smear tests to the US. I know in Sandyford in Dublin they were doing them. There's only 10% of our smear tests being done in Ireland. 90% are going to the US. And now they've recently closed Sandyford, the clinic, the labs up there. So that's not only less smear tests being done here, but job losses as well. I don't understand, and they'll probably pull it back to money. But how much cheaper is it to send them all off?
And may I ask you, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but there's 5 Manana Daisha, 5 in that group.
Yeah. Are
any of you affected or know somebody? What's prompting this?
Yeah, we do know people that are affected, and obviously confidentiality is the key to Manana Daisha. There are Waterford women affected, and it's heartbreaking. Who's fighting for them? Where do they go for help? What's been done about it? There's no answers from the government. All the government seems to be doing is bringing sick women to court when they want to fight, when it's not their fault.
And I can't understand that.
It's craziness. These women are dying, are very, very sick, and they're being dragged to court for something that's not their fault.
Even from a PR point of view, how wrong it looks. Yeah. And we all know government spin, and they're all governed by how things look.
There's no way around what they're doing to people to make it look good, because it doesn't. It's awful. It's absolutely terrible.
So are you planning to, what form will the protest take? Are you going to close the bridge? Or
No, we were tempted. We wanted to make a lot of noise. organised, you know, something that's going to get attention from the media. But look, it's going to be a Friday evening, people are going to be going home from work, they're not going to be happy in their cars looking at us screaming. Do you know, so no, we're going to do a visual statement. We're not quite sure yet what, but we want to just do something about it. And
fair play to you, because, you know, a lot of people say someone should do something, and they are someone. Yeah. So fair play to you for actually doing it.
So hopefully people will come and see and join in. You know, we were going to make banners and, as I said, put child in the buggy. Do you know?
So what time would you be then? I presume fellas can come too.
Oh, this affects men as well. I mean, your mothers. This affects every woman in Ireland. So it affects men too. Their mothers, their daughters, their sisters. So men come too.
So what time are you meeting at and where?
5 o'clock on the bridge on Saturday, on Friday. Just for 1 hour, one hour out of your day.
Okay, it's a small thing really, I suppose, when you think about it. So the best of luck with that, Catriona.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for coming in. That is Catriona English there from Manaw. Now, Déise, and that protest is happening on Rice Bridge this coming Friday between 5 and 6. Just before I finish up, Margaret was on to say, "Hi Maria, I'm very annoyed after listening to the Farmers Journal journalist. I can't afford to pay more for meat or indeed any other foodstuff. I'm on a very tight budget. I cut down greatly on meat consumption years ago for that reason. I don't know of any other business who expect to be bailed out by government and the general public if their profits drop. Try losing the office job you took the day after finishing your leaving cert. No redundancy, only 1 to 2 week or half week statutory. I don't really understand how that came in. After all the PAYE and PRSI for over 40 years, says Margaret. Oh, Margaret. But I think saying that, you know, you don't know of any other company if their profits drop that the general public don't pay, I think you're on a hiding to nothing there, because we all pay. If any company has a drop in profits, the prices go up, and that's what happens, unfortunately. No good to you, I suppose, but you can understand from the farmer's point of view that if you're looking at, well, hold on now, it cost me X amount to produce this beef. Joe Soap on my right is getting X amount of it, and Joe Soap on my left is getting X amount of it, and I'm getting the least amount of it, and I'm getting not enough to make it worth my while. I don't know how there's any beef farmers even still left, judging by the figures we've been hearing from them so far, but that's a story for another day, and that is today's programme brought to a close. You have been listening to Déise Today, brought to you in association with Mulligan's Pharmacy. The programme is produced by Jennifer Long with the assistance of Aisling Boland. Andy's up next with lots of great music for you, so you keep it right here on WLR, and I'll talk to you again in the morning. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. See you. Bye-bye.